What is happiness? This is a question that most people don't ask themselves very often, or at all. Most people don't actually ask this at all. But there is a misconception among the vast majority of people that happiness is essentially long-term pleasure, or what's considered to be a pleasure that, well, what is a pleasure that lasts long, and may provide meaning for specific individuals in a specific area of life, or throughout their lives. But when you look at it, right, the pleasures do not last long, right? Ontologically speaking, taking from Schopenhauer's famous pain-pleasure equation, which is ontologically and metaphysically true, so objectively true in assessing the human condition, we can see that pain is much more potent than pleasure, and pleasure most of the times consists in the relief of pain. Not all the time, of course, but pleasures are definitely less intense than pains. Now, back to the issue of happiness. That is not how. Basically, that is not happiness. Okay, happiness. If you think of pleasure and relief and excitement as emotions that are 2D, right? Think of happiness as a 3D emotion. It's comprised of a lot more, right? And when I say that, what do I mean? Number one, living a moral, disciplined life. So number one, you don't engage in evil actions that cause suffering to others, and therefore you keep your conscience pure, right? You have a clean conscience. This is something that's important, right? Sorry. Number two, you have a source of genuine pleasure in your life, right? I'm not talking about a short-term pleasure that you use as a coping mechanism, like, say, I don't know, scrolling through TikTok or YouTube Shorts to kind of cope with life or something, which is actually kind of a form of minor depression that a lot of people have nowadays. But you use that as you have a source of genuine pleasure that gives you maybe some form of escapism. I'm going to make a video on escapism that you can intertwine yourself in, and that is kind of a better way to cope, and that you can intertwine yourself in other realities and storylines and etc. Or whatever you choose, and that gives you something to do that preoccupies you with something that is meaningful. Now let's move on to meaning, right? You need to have a source of meaning in your life, right? That is, it may be philosophical, right, all encompassing about life itself. I don't believe you should focus it on worldly things like a career or a relationship, because you can lose those things, right? And I think this is, if you guys know anything about Stoic philosophy, right, a lot of these things like a career, a relationship, they're preferred indifference, right? So even happiness is a preferred indifferent, but I'm giving you a different definition of happiness, right? So what you do in regard to that is you live a life of virtue, you live a life of discipline, right? Which allows you, because look, pleasure is primarily a reduction of pain and suffering, and it's much less powerful than pains. So most pleasures, in my opinion anyway, are not worth engaging in, right? So if you discipline yourself and you stay on the virtuous path, or a disciplined path primarily, right, which is a lot of what virtue is anyway, then you can shield yourself against a lot of the afflictions and sufferings of life, especially in like old age and stuff. Now, there are other factors, maybe I'll remember them later on, but I think if you combine that, right, if you combine discipline with morality and combined happiness and meaning, sorry, pleasure and meaning, right, then that triad kind of serves itself, right? Most people cannot live like this because of the natural desires that are present within the human body and within, just within our mind, right? If you practice meditation, for instance, you know that one of the goals is to quieten the mind, right? To kind of just let it flow, right? And to kind of stop a lot of the intrusive thoughts that we have to deal with as conscious beings. And that's something I find very interesting as well. The more conscious you are, you have to actually put in effort to find happiness, because naturally that happiness doesn't really come, right? Consciousness is, in a way, it's a burden, but if you know what you're doing, like it's a damper on happiness or contentment or stability, right? Then I believe you can find the right dynamic. And also, there's another thing I want to talk about: the difference between happiness and contentment. I have already mentioned that in previous videos. But yeah, I mean, I believe that those are two different concepts. Also, as well, staying away from most people. Most people, at least from my observations and from what I've seen, cannot don't really provide any kind of meaning or even pleasure to your life. They'll just bring you down, if anything. They'll judge you. They'll assume about you. Um, and I don't really believe that forming connections to other human beings, most people anyway, is a good idea, right? If you do want to form connections to people, right? I mean, I'm not saying go hermit. That's not a good idea, right? But I believe that if you are going to form connections to people, it should be based on genuine feelings, right? Based on more so intellectual understanding and being similar as people, right? And being able to have a conversation with them and then being trustworthy. All these kinds of things are more so practical issues, right? But most people, I don't associate with them. I don't really waste time on people. And also, like, as I said, discipline, so controlling your instincts, your urges, and also engaging in a form of, I said this before in the meaning, but some kind of intellectual, kind of having an intellectual life, right? So really growing your knowledge, right? Knowledge is something, and when you gain knowledge, you gain wisdom, right? So gaining knowledge to expand your knowledge of the world, right? I know I said that twice, but just to kind of learn about the reality that you're in and just to kind of gain an appreciation for the finer things, not even the finer things, but just the little things that make our lives bearable. But anyway, I'm going to see you guys in the next one. If you like this, leave a like and a subscribe. Comment your thoughts below, and yeah, see you guys in the next one.